Are you someone who says yes because you can see exactly how to make it happen? Do people come to you because they know that you will deliver? And are you exhausted because of it? Today we're talking about the high performers trap. Hello and welcome to the Learn and Work Smarter podcast. I am Katie and we are on episode 105. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you're watching this on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe to the show, or if you're listening on a podcast app. And if you know someone who could benefit from what we cover, then please share this episode, or I guess any episode, with them so that we can all learn and work smarter together. That sounds so cheesy. Anyway, the high performers trap, that's what we're talking about today. What is this high performers trap? It is a pretty simple concept, actually, but it's kind of a tough situation to be in. It can be even harder to get out of, but it's possible. Ask me how I know. So here it is in a nutshell. The better you get at something, the more people ask you to do it. And because you're capable, you say yes. You can see how to execute. You know you'll do it well. And so you take it on. And you take on the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. The trap isn't that you're doing high quality work or even that you've become the go-to for what seems like everything and everyone. The trap is that your competence becomes the reason you say yes. You're no longer even thinking of whether you should say yes, if it's the right thing. You're not making strategic decisions about your time and your energy and your goals and your desires anymore. You're just responding to what you're good at because you're in the trap and you don't know how to get out. And this doesn't necessarily feel like a problem at first. It feels like, engagement with your work. It feels like being responsible, being reliable, being known as the person who gets things done. And it can actually feel really good because people ask you to do things. So you're like, oh, it's because they know I can do it. And you do it well until one day you look at everything on your plate and you realize that you can't actually sustain it. And it no longer feels good. You're starting to feel resentful at the people who are asking you to do these things, even though in the beginning you felt like it was a reward and you felt proud you were being asked. But by then you've built a reputation as the one who says yes. You've made commitments and obligations and you have responsibilities as a result of those yeses. And backing out feels impossible. Hello, you are listening to the Learn and Work Smarter podcast, the podcast for students and professionals who want to learn and work smarter. I'm your host, executive function coach, and founder of schoolhabits.com, Katie Azevedo. As a reminder, everything I mention in today's episode will be linked in the show notes, including a link to the transcript, which you can also find at learnandworksmarter.com/podcast. Now, it's really possible to fall into the high performers trap in any context. If you're a student, maybe you said yes to 5 clubs, to taking all of the advanced classes just because teachers recommended that for you. Tutoring other students because those students asked you, or a teacher recommended you, or their parents asked you, maybe maintaining a part-time job just because you can. People ask you to do these things because they know that you will follow through on them and that you will do a good job. Teachers nominate you for leadership positions, and so you're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Your friends ask you to help with their work. You say yes because you care about doing things well, and you do them well. If you're a professional, maybe you're the person who volunteers for the cross-functional project. Maybe you're mentoring, junior team members, taking on the presentation that no one else wants to do, and you still hit all your regular deadlines. You're a high performer. Your manager knows they can count on you. Your colleagues know that you're going to deliver high-quality work, and you do every single time. So they keep asking you. Now, in both cases, you're not saying yes because someone's forcing you to do it, unless it's your boss and it's your job. But in the examples I just shared, no one's twisting your arm and making you do it. You're saying yes because you're engaged. You're a good doobie. You care about the outcomes. You like working hard. You like doing a good job. You have high standards for yourself, and you get personal, internal satisfaction from meeting them. That's not a bad thing. That's what makes you good at what you do, and it's probably afforded you some success up to this point. But there is a difference between being engaged with your work and, being good at it and completely giving up all of your boundaries. And that is what we need to talk about. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I'm not a high performer. I struggle with a lot of things. I'm not incredible across the board. Stay with me, because high performance is not just about being exceptional at everything, it's about being capable enough that people notice and ask. Capable enough in like any particular area. Maybe you're not a straight A student, but you're the one that your study group relies on to organize everything. Maybe you're not, at work gunning for promotions, but you're the person your team trusts to handle complicated clients every single time they come around. High performance can show up in specific areas. It's not necessarily defined by high performance across every context, okay? And if you care deeply about doing certain things well, even if other areas of your life feel less high performance-y, this trap can still catch you. So we have to talk about why this happens. And obviously we're going to get into some strategies too, but like, why are we falling into this trap? Why do capable people keep saying yes until they burn out? There's probably a ton of reasons that I can't get into all of them here, but there's a few that I do want to cover. First, high performers tend to be more engaged. I've already used that word a lot, and I know it's educational speak, but it's true. You're just more in tune and locked in and interested in what you're doing. You're not just going through the motions. You care about what you're doing and you like it. And you also have high expectations for yourself. And that internal drive is a good thing. It's what makes you good at your work, but it also means that you probably feel the weight of things not getting done, or maybe even just not getting done well to the standards that you have. So when someone asks you to take something on, you're not just thinking, can I fit this into my schedule? You're thinking, well, I can see how to do this right. And if I don't do it right, will it even get done at all? And if it gets done at all, will the other person do it well? Will the other person do it right? Now, second, there's the vision problem. So high performers can typically envision how to execute something. They can see it through. They can picture it happening. They can picture the final thing. So when someone describes a project or maybe a problem, you're already mentally mapping out the solution. And once you can see it, once you're visualizing it, it kind of starts to feel like your responsibility already, even though you haven't taken any action. Like you've already mentally committed to this obligation, to this ask, before you've verbally committed to anything. Like if you can see the path forward, shouldn't you be the one to do it? That's sort of like the questions we ask ourselves. But you know what that vision doesn't show you? You know what's less obvious? The cumulative weight of everything you take on. You might be capable, in fact, you definitely are, of executing every single individual project to an excellent level. But can you do all of them at total excellence at the exact same time? This happens all the time with my student clients. They will, for my high schoolers anyway, they'll sign up for 5 AP courses. And they'll be like, do you think that's a good idea? Everyone's different, right? Each scenario is different. But yes, in many cases, they are absolutely capable of getting an A in every single AP course individually. But taking all 5 at once while they're also doing sports and have a job and belong to, whatever clubs, that is a whole different animal. High performers don't just say yes to one more thing in isolation. They say yes to one more thing on top of everything else that they're already carrying and that they're already doing and that they're already doing well. All right, so that was 2. The third reason why high performers fall into this trap is there's often an awareness of your reputation. Not in a superficial way. We all should have some sort of awareness of our reputation, but in a very genuine way, they know what their reputation is, what they want it to be, and what it takes to maintain that. People come to you because you deliver. You've built trust with your colleagues or maybe your peers. And saying no feels like you're letting people down, or maybe you're damaging that trust. And so you protect your reputation by continuing to say yes, even when you're stretched thin, even when you're crying inside. Again, ask me how I know. And then finally, a lot of this is driven by internal satisfaction, not necessarily external validation. We do things for internal motivation, for external motivation, but a lot of this high performance trap that we fall into is because of internal satisfaction. Okay, something within. Maybe you like praise. Many of us do, right? But more often it's about meeting our own standards, right? You want to do good work because that is who you are. And that's amazing. Internal drive and high standards are incredible to have and to cultivate. The problem is that internal standards don't know when to stop or where to draw the line. They're just like, keep going until you die, right? There has to be a line we draw. It just keeps pushing you to do more, to do better, to say yes to the next thing. Again, even if you're crying inside. Now, there's also this thing that happens with, what's the word for it? Benchmarks. You perform well in a particular instance, okay? So maybe you pull off a great project under a tight deadline, or you're successfully juggling 5 things in, one particular semester in college, and you can pull it off and you have success and people recognize that success. And that anomaly, that exception becomes the new normal. That exceptional moment becomes your new baseline. Instead of seeing that moment of excellence as an anomaly of something that just happened because all the stars aligned and, it was this rare thing, something out of the ordinary and cool in its own right, high performers tend to keep moving that standard upward. Every time you reach a new level of achievement, that just becomes a new expectation you have for yourself. So you're not just maintaining, competence, you're constantly trying to exceed your last personal best, which, just as it sounds, is exhausting. I'm going to give you an example from when I was in graduate school. I had a classmate in my program. I liked her. I really did. We took multiple classes together, just over, the time that we were in the program together. And she would regularly ask me for my notes or to tell her what was going to be on the test, because she knew that I was tracking those things and I liked tracking those things and I was good at it. And I didn't mind sharing. That's actually what I do for a living now. You know what I mean? But every single one of those requests added a little bit of extra work. Formatting my notes so they made sense to her, because I cared about that. Like, my notes made sense for me. And then when she was like, hey, can I have your notes? I was like, oh, okay, well, I should probably clean them up and I should probably make them so they make sense for you. I didn't just give her what I had, right? And then taking time to explain what I thought would be tested, because I didn't write it out. The point is, my methods worked for me, as they should work for you. And so just handing my things off to her didn't cut it for me. I had to invest, honestly, significant amount of time into formatting my things for her. I guess they were small things individually, but on top of everything else that I was managing in grad school, it did accumulate. And it built into, honestly, a bit of resentment. I feel bad saying that now. I don't think I've ever said that out loud, but that's the reality. And I kept saying yes because I could do it. And I liked her. And honestly, saying no felt mean. And to be honest, this pattern hasn't completely gone away. I'm a work in progress. In my business now, I get collaboration requests and partnership opportunities that genuinely align with what I do. A lot of them are spam, but the ones that come through, so many of them, I'm like, that would be awesome. And my first instinct is still to just try to figure out how to make it work. Because I know how to do it, and I know that I can do it, and I know that I can do it well. So shouldn't I? Well, these days I know better. And I'm trying to get better at saying no. And so, I've gotten better, I guess, at least being aware of this trap. So I do try to say no more. But I'm just sharing these personal examples with you because I'm not recording this podcast episode from a place that's way higher up on some mountain than any of you. I'm literally in the exact same position as you. I just have a microphone in front of me to talk about it. You know what I mean? So let's talk about what sustainable high performance looks like in practice, in real life. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to say, okay, well, what does this actually mean? What does this look like? And how can I implement it? It is most definitely not at all about doing everything that comes your way. It's about being strategic with your yeses and intentional with your nos. It's choosing to do deep, excellent work on fewer things rather than surface level work on just everything that is asked of you. For a student, it might mean being deeply involved in just 2 activities that you genuinely care about, and you can give everything you have to instead of just giving a fraction of yourself to 5. It means taking 4 classes and excelling in all of them instead of overloading yourself with 6 and maybe just getting B's across the board because you're stretched too thin. For a professional, this might mean leading one major project where you can really move the needle and make an impact instead of just being like a weak contributor on 4 different initiatives. Maybe it means mentoring 2 junior colleagues well instead of saying yes to every mentoring request and giving everybody half of your attention. And then internally, here's what sustainable high performance might feel like, right? Like on the inside, it feels like you're engaged in what you're doing and you don't feel resentful toward the people or the person who asked you to do the thing. You have this mental freedom, or not freedom's not the right word, space to think strategically and creatively about what you're doing instead of focusing just on like getting it done and like meet the deadline. You can be like, what is this project? What do I like about it? What could it look like? It feels good and delicious instead of just like utilitarian meet deadline. And when you finish work for the day, or maybe you close your laptop after studying, you feel accomplished and like you made measurable progress on something, rather than like you just spent a few hours running in place but not moving anywhere. That's the worst feeling. You're proud of what you're producing because you had the capacity to do it well and to your own standard. And when someone asks you to take something on, you don't immediately feel that pit in your stomach because you know that you have the space and skills to evaluate your answer thoughtfully. And when I say skills, I'm talking about like you're going to use some of the strategies that I'm going to share with you in just a second. Sustainable high performance means protecting your capacity so you can protect the quality of the work that you're doing. And when you say yes to the right things, the things that align with your goals, the things that are energizing to you, that you can excel at, or that challenge you in a good way, you're able to show up fully and honestly happily. And that full happy engagement is what builds the reputation you want because you're going to do good work. And that's what you're judged on. Now, this is what separates high performers who burn out after just a season of high performance from high performance who sustain excellence over time, maybe over a career or full academic, 4 years or whatever. So knowing all of this, recognizing this pattern in myself and seeing it in the students and professionals I work with, what's the solution here? Let's be clear about something up front. The goal here is not to stop caring. It's not to lower your standards or become someone who does mediocre work. Can you imagine if that were my message to you all? Being engaged in your work, caring about outcomes, having high expectations for yourself, that's valuable. That's capital. That's what makes you good at what you do. All right, so we want to keep that as is. But there is a difference between being engaged and being boundaryless. You can be deeply committed to your work and still protect your time and energy. In fact, boundaries are what are going to allow you to stay engaged long term and succeed over time, right? Over your career, your academic career, instead of on just one single project or maybe one quarter or semester. When you say yes to everything, your performance will be affected. That's just a matter of energy and time math. Like it's a math equation, right? Remember the 5 AB courses. You might be capable of excellence in each one individually, but taking them all at once means that none of them get your best work. Saying no to some things is about directing your high standards intentionally on the right things. It's about choosing where you apply that engaged high performer energy so that when you do say yes, you can deliver at the level that you want to deliver at. You can still be a high performer and say no. All right, so you are recognizing yourself in this pattern. What do you do about it? I'm going to give you 5 strategies. These are not generic like set boundaries advice, but I'm going to say they're kind of like specific questions and exercises you can use to identify when you're overcommitting and maybe make different choices. The first one is to do a can versus should audit. I know that's kind of like a cheesy name, but whatever. When something new comes up, a request, an opportunity, a project, I want you to ask yourself 2 separate questions. First, can I do this? And the answer is probably yes, you're capable. Like you're a high performer. You're already listening to this episode halfway through, right? You know that you can see how to execute. But then the second question, should I do this? And the should has to be based on something other than your capability. Does this align with a specific goal you have? Does it replace something else that shouldn't be on your plate? Or is it adding to an already full plate? Is this the best use of your specific skills? Or could somebody else be doing it? Being able to do something does not automatically mean that you should be the one doing it. Second, do a reputation reality check. So high performers, I already mentioned this, care about reputation. Not in a superficial way, but in a genuine way. You've built trust. People know you deliver. But the next time someone asks you to take on a project or a task, ask yourself this. What do I want to be known for? Not just reliable, right? You don't want to just be known as the person who's reliable or the person who says yes all the time, but specifically beyond that, what expertise, what contribution, what kind of work do you want to be known for? And then you look at your current commitments and you see what percentage of them truly build that reputation, the one that you want to have, versus just building a reputation for being helpful or available anytime somebody asks. Like, what reputation do you really want? Sometimes we're protecting a reputation for general competence or reliability or being like the yes guy when we actually want to be known for something more specific. And saying no to things outside that focus, it doesn't damage your reputation. Okay, it actually clarifies it and it shines a spotlight on it. Third, I'm going to call this the energy ROI assessment, return on investment. Not all high quality work gives you the same return. All right, so the next time that you're evaluating your current commitments or maybe considering a new one, either you're taking it on yourself or someone has asked you to, I want you to ask yourself this: what am I doing that gives me energy and satisfaction relative to the effort that I'm putting in? And what drains me even when I do it well? So for example, I feel like I should give an example for this one. It's kind of a hard one to understand. Maybe you're really great at organizing group projects and people always ask you to do that, right? You deliver every single time, but it exhausts you and you don't like it. Meanwhile, the actual research or maybe the creative work on those projects is what energizes you. But you're spending most of your time on the logistics and the organization because that's what people have asked you to do. That is really good information to know about yourself. So the next time someone asks you to organize a group project, maybe you propose that you'll contribute to the creative part and the research, but someone else needs to handle the logistics. High performers often keep doing things we're excellent at simply because we're good at them, but those tasks might be depleting us. Just because you can do something well doesn't mean it's worth the energy cost. Give yourself permission to say no, or if that's too hard for you to do, as it is for me, I'm giving you permission to say no to things you're excellent at if they're not energizing you. And fourth, so there's 5, so there's number 4. If not me, then what? This is what you ask yourself. So high performers often say yes because we can see the gap if we don't do something, right? We can visualize what will happen if this project doesn't get done, or if it doesn't get done well or to our standards. But the next time you're considering taking something on, mentally play it out. I want you to think to yourself, if I don't do this thing, what actually truly happens? Like a real life scenario, if I say no, what could happen? So for example, maybe your team needs someone to take notes in every single meeting and you've been doing it for, years because you're thorough and organized and you're good at it. But what if you don't do it? What if you say no to the next time? What happens? Maybe someone else steps up and takes decent enough notes and everything's fine. Maybe the team realizes that they need a rotating note-taker system. People do that. Or maybe you saying no reveals that half of these meetings don't actually need detailed notes at all. Sometimes the answer is someone else handles it. Like when we ask ourselves, what happens if I don't do it? The answer is, well, someone else will do it. And sometimes it's, well, it doesn't happen, and that's fine. And sometimes it reveals a system problem that needs to be solved differently, not just by me taking it on again. You're not responsible for filling every single gap just because you can see it. That's all part of the high performer trap. You see the gaps when others don't, and you feel responsible for filling those gaps. But chances are, if you say no, someone else will fill the gap, or it's revealed that it wasn't even a gap in the first place. Fifth and final, the strategic subtraction exercise. My names are so cheesy. I'm fully aware of that when I say this, when I say these out loud. But the thing about being a high performer is that you tend to accumulate commitments over time, and those commitments make sense to you when you said yes to them, like a while ago. So it's not like you shouldn't have said yes in the first place thing, okay? But your priorities change. Your goals change over time. What mattered last year might not matter now. And that's normal, right? Totally fine. That's just a sign of evolution. So periodically, I'd say maybe once a semester, once a quarter, whatever works for you, look at what you're spending time on and ask yourself, does this still align with what I'm trying to do? For example, maybe you joined a professional organization 2 years ago when you were exploring a particular career path. You attended the meetings, you're on a committee for it, you're still showing up because you said yes 2 years ago. But now your career focus is different and this organization isn't serving your current goals. Or maybe you're, a student who signed up for 3 extracurriculars freshman year, because that's what you do freshman year, right? You're trying to figure out what your interests are and figure things out. But now you're a junior and you know what you want to focus on. But you're still showing up to all 3 of those activities out of habit or out of guilt about quitting. It is okay for your priorities to change. In fact, it's necessary. If you want to be a high performer, your commitments have to change and your priorities have to change. Strategic subtraction means seriously looking at your plate and identifying what you can let go of because it doesn't fit where you are now. High performers have to learn how to subtract things from our plates as we grow and as our focus evolves. And once you go through this exercise and identify what your current priorities are now, that becomes your new filter because you're going to get asked to take on something else, like probably tomorrow. That's inevitable, right? That's just the nature of others identifying you as being the high performer. But now that you have clarity on what your current priorities are, when someone asks you to do something, you can evaluate that request against your current priorities and make a strategic decision about whether it's a yes or no. All right, so now we've identified what deserves a yes or a no. But how do we actually say it? Especially when you've built a reputation for saying yes. For me personally, this is the hardest part. Like I said earlier, I'm getting better at knowing what I should say yes to and what I should say no to, but it's the actual saying no part that I think is a little bit harder. And I know I'm not the only one, right, and who thinks that way. I do have a couple strategies. Again, I am working on this with you. Okay, so just because I've identified these how to say no strategies doesn't mean that I have them all in the bag. First things first, you don't owe anyone a lengthy explanation or a justification for your no. A simple, kind, professional no is enough. But if you want to maintain relationships and maybe be more diplomatic about it, here are some approaches that tend to work. Number one, I would say make it about capacity. That's hard to argue with. You could say something like, I appreciate you thinking of me for this. Unfortunately, I'm at capacity right now, and I wouldn't be able to give it the attention that it deserves. All right, number two, you can make it about your priorities. You could say something like, this sounds like a great opportunity, but I'm focused on, I don't know, name a specific priority right now, and I need to protect that commitment. Number three, you can make it about timing or like a timeline. You can say something like, I can't take this on right now, but if the timeline is flexible, I might have bandwidth in the future, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, give it a future time frame. But only offer this if you actually mean it. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up to be in the same position down the road when they return in 6 to 12 months and ask you to do the thing. Number four, you can offer an alternative, something like, I'm not able to take this on right now, but have you considered another person or another resource or another approach? And fill in the blank. This works when you genuinely want to be helpful, but you just can't be the one to personally do it. And then number five, you could try a partial yes. This is a little softer. You could say something like, well, I can't do all of this, but I can help with this specific thing. And then you can name some smaller piece, right? I suggest you use this one sparingly, only when you actually want to contribute something specific, not as just some default compromise every time someone asks you to do something, because a lot of partial yeses are going to add up really, really fast. And what you'll notice here is that none of these require you to apologize excessively or to over-explain. I'm really trying to encourage you not to do that. You're not justifying your decision. You're stating it clearly and respectfully. You don't owe anyone a justification. And what you'll find, honestly, is that when you start saying no this way, people are going to respect it because you're just being honest about your capacity, your time, or your priorities or whatever. People appreciate that honesty. They might be bummed because they probably genuinely thought that you were the perfect person for the project or the task, but they're going to move on. They're going to ask someone else. It's all going to be fine, right? Like nobody cares. I care about you. That's not what I'm saying. But so many times we're like, what if I say no and this person thinks, they'll just move on to the next person that they had in mind. And look, I know this isn't easy. If you're a high performer, saying no feels uncomfortable. I know that. It might feel like you're letting people down or maybe not living up to your own standards, but hear me when I tell you this. If you care about being a high performer and you've worked yourself into that position and earned yourself that reputation, you probably want to maintain it. But the reality is that saying yes to everything people ask you to do just because you are good at it can ironically make you really bad at those things. If you truly want to maintain your status as a high performer, you are going to have to be more selective about what you say yes to. That's how you protect your performance on the things that matter to you. You know what I mean? All right, so let's recap what we covered today. That was a lot. The high performers trap is real. You can fall into it without even knowing it's happening. It's usually actually after you've been in it for a while that you notice that you're overworked and you're resentful and then you're in the middle of the trap. This is the cycle. You are capable, or you do something that demonstrates that you're capable at something. People notice that, then they ask you to do it again and you say yes because you can see how to execute on all the things, and you might feel guilty about saying no. But being a high performer itself isn't the problem, though. Caring about your work, having high standards, being engaged, those are all really good things. Being a high performer is a good thing, but we can be deeply engaged in our school and our work and still have boundaries. In fact, boundaries are what allow you to sustain that high performance over time. You can use the strategies we talked about today, which were separate the can I from the should I. Those are very different things. Clarify what reputation you're actually building, not just, saying yes to develop the reputation of someone who, is agreeable and takes on everything. But what is it that you want to be known for? What's the true work that you want a reputation around? Asking what happens if you don't do something, and do a mental exercise to plan that out. Chances are somebody else will do it. And then periodically subtract commitments that no longer align with where you currently are at. You can still be a high performer who says no, because saying no strategically is what is going to allow you to say yes to the right things with your full energy and focus. All right, my friends. I invite you to come find me on Instagram at School Habits. Send me a DM and let me know you've heard the show. I love hearing from my community, and it honestly makes everything I do so very worth it. Thank you for your time. Keep showing up, keep doing the hard work, keep asking the hard questions, and never stop learning.